This meeting is being recorded.
What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is we're slowly reaching that 100 mark point. And we are it's been a hell of a ride. We've just been interviewing artists from all over the world, from all different genres, and I'm just super excited to see where this journey keeps taking us. Today I have Claire Sully on. Claire, how are you today?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm great, thank you.
No, of course. I mean, it's always so special to me when artists can just take time out of their day to just sit here and talk about their story through music and just share what the kind of behind the scenes life is like for you, like when it comes to writing music and how you really started in the music business. Because what I always like to tell people is you can sit there and listen to a song from an artist, whether they're big time or they're independent and trying to make it, and just be like, oh, hey, that's like a cool song. They're a cool artist. But with this platform is it just really opens a lot of different doors to the behind the scenes stuff and how everything kind of comes about and just better of who you are as an artist. So that's really what this is going to be about today. And just thank you for taking time to be here to do this.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so kind of just jumping right into the first question. It's always the basic of basics, and it really sets up the whole interview is just where did singing and playing really kind of come about for you? Because I know for some artists, it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes and stuff like that. But then I always like to compare it to someone like myself who just really only started songwriting and producing back in 2018, which was only 4 or 5 years ago. So just where did kind of singing and playing, how did that really kind of all come about for you?
Yeah, so as a kid, I was very introverted, very shy. And it wasn't until I moved from Italy, first of all.
Okay.
So that was a huge step. But when I was 13, I did my first gig, like bar performance. And that really just opened up my love for music, my passion for the arts, and just kind of being pushed on a stage really just opened me up as a person. And I became more extroverted as I grew up because I was exposed to high energy crowds. And so that's kind of how that happened. But I picked up a guitar at like 11 years old. I did my first gig at 13. I'm 23 now, so 10 years later I'm still doing it, and I've been singing since I was like 4. So yeah, very young,
Yeah,
and I love
no,
it.
and that's awesome. It's all like I said, it's just always so cool to hear how people really started in music and stuff like that, whether it was at the early age or whether they just started. But I mean, obviously it's been your whole life kind of journey for you, and that's just super cool. And there's always when you're in the music business and when you're first starting out, you definitely have a lot of inspirations through
Yeah.
other artists and stuff like that. I mean, I always like to just say is like Garth Brooks and Chris Daughtry are two of my all-time favorite artists and both
They're great.
huge inspirations for me. So this is kind of leading into the next question is just who are some inspirations that you kind of really look up to in the music business, and who are just some artists that you kind of listen to that just help inspire you when it comes to creating music?
Totally. Um, so my sound is very pop country. So my biggest inspirations are Kelsey Ballerini, Lindsay L. She's great. Maddie and Tay, Dolly Parton. Yeah, and my sound just kind of dived in after growing up and listening to those artists. I was like, I kind of want my sound to go there. And they're great. They're great.
Yeah.
So definitely.
No, and that's awesome. I mean, I definitely love all those artists that you just named. There's not one thing wrong with any of those.
So
And
great.
and it's always tough to ask that question too, because we could just sit here. I could sit here for hours and just talk about all kinds of inspirations and all kinds of artists that just have so many different things that I take away from each and every one of them that I try to incorporate into my songwriting, into my producing and stuff like that. When it comes to naming some of those artists like you just did and like I did, is the creative process, is their songwriting and their storytelling is really what I take away from a lot of different artists. And I always have to quote Garrett Walker, who was on the show a while back, and he said this quote perfectly, is the songwriting process is like a puzzle. Whether you have 500 or 1,000 pieces, how people can sit there and do 1,000-piece puzzles on a good day is beyond me. I could never sit there and do that. But it's you have this whole things scattered on the table, and slowly you start putting the border together, you slowly start putting the middle together, and then by the end you have this full masterpiece, this full thing that you can share with people and be like, hey, look what I just created, look how I did this. So it's always cool that Garrett Walker did come up with that analogy, and I've been sharing that on the show ever since. But so what is your creative process like when it comes to writing music?
I think, my whole life I've been a storyteller. And I think that country music just does a very good job of being a genre that story tells and, just overall tells a story. And so I just think that when it comes down to sitting in a room and thinking about what inspires me, I get inspired very easily by everything and anything. So far, I've been very inspired by, breakups, fallouts. It seems like more negative than positive, but I don't know. Um, yeah, I guess I would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's always just cool because I mean, there is no wrong or right answer when it comes to like what the creative process is, because I was just talking about it on a couple episodes ago, is if there was a book on how to songwrite, then everyone would do it. And like it's crazy because like everyone's always like, well, is there a wrong or right answer to this? And I'm like, no, it's songwriting. There is no rhyme or reason. Some people
And
start
everybody is different, right? I could
exactly.
write about heartbreak that sounds one way, whereas another artists write about the same thing, but put it in like in a different way. So definitely.
Exactly. And it's just always cool too, because like some people start with a melody and then they work the lyrics off of that melody. But like for me, like I'm definitely more of a lyric person. So like I start with those lyrics, I start with that chorus or I start with that verse, and then I try to incorporate the melody in and see how I can figure out what is going to fit where and everything. But it's always so cool to ask that question and how people kind of really go behind the scenes and create the song.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. See, I'm the opposite. I need to hear a melody first and
Okay.
then put the lyrics in. I'm super quick.
Yeah. No, see, I mean, I've tried it numerous times, but then like 4 hours go by and I have like two words written down to the melody, and I'm like, I can't do this. It's when I'm in that emotion and when I feel that stuff, it's so easier for me to just write things down. So then it just all kind of flows natural.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so getting to the fourth question is always the most difficult and challenging question that I ask. And artists usually always hate it, but that's why I love being the interviewer and
Yeah.
asking these questions, because I don't like this question at all. And I don't know if I could ever answer it. But at the end of the day, there's hundreds and thousands of artists out there trying to make a name for themselves. And I
Right.
mean, obviously, you have all these social media platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok is a huge one as well, Instagram. But
Yeah.
it's so hard to just try and make your own name for yourself with all these other artists out there trying to do that. So my question is for you is, what makes you you at the end of the day compared to all these other artists, and what can we take away from your music that we can't find in anyone else's music?
That is a very good question, and it's also very difficult to answer. Um, okay. Gosh, that's a great question. So I guess I've always developed. I tried to develop a brand when I was 13. My dad always taught me that. So it's really a perseverance game. You just got to keep putting your name out there, keep performing, keep doing gigs, keep doing shows. Um, I don't know, and I think it just got down to a point where it's like you got to know the right people, and then wait, I'm going off on this. What was your question?
No, you're good. It's just at the end of the day, what makes Claire Sully Claire Sully as an artist?
Yeah, what makes me me? I mean, I think, like I said, I just sit down with my thoughts and I kind of just like, I don't like to put out music that you hear on the radio because I feel like everybody's kind of doing that. So I'm kind of like, I have a story, everybody else has a different story. And at the end of the day, it's like if I'm able to put out a record or a single that people are able to relate to, that's what's very important to me. I come from a background of international, Italy, and I have family in Argentina. So I also like to, put my other languages. I speak Italian and Spanish too. So I think that definitely makes me very unique and very different. I still have yet to write a country song in Spanish or Italian, but yeah, but I would say that.
No, and that's awesome. And what you just said is if when you write a song, if you can release a record that's going to touch other people, that right there is one of the more perfect answers that I always love hearing, because that's what I pride myself on as a songwriter, is if I can go out of my way, like, I mean, it would be great to touch a million different people, but at the end of the day, if I could release a song that touches that one person, or that two people that reach out and say, hey, this song just really helped me and like really figured it out, then at the end of the day, I can consider myself a successful songwriter, because
Absolutely, yeah.
it's so powerful just to connect with those couple of people, if that's all it takes. And it just, that's the answers that I love hearing. And that's just, you definitely, as much as the question is difficult, you definitely answered it perfectly.
It was a difficult question.
So kind of getting into the last question before we hear a song from you, is kind of looking towards your future, is what are some of your short-term and long-term goals as an artist, and just what else can we kind of expect down the road from you?
Yeah, well, so I'm currently going to Nashville in November, and I have a music consultant, and we're both headed down there together. And we have this goal. He tells me, we're on the phone for 2 hours, like last week, and he's like, Claire, I want you to meet Missy and Byron Gallimore, who end up writing and producing for Faith Hill and Tim McGraw. So my big goal is kind of just meet with them, see where it goes. I'd like to sign a publishing deal, just because, as a songwriter, I think that's the first step before signing a record deal. So I'm in a ton of kind of meetings and doing some radio press for this record. And hopefully things run smoothly in Nashville. I would hope and pray that they go well. But yeah, that's right now my big goal is to get a publishing deal.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. And I mean, obviously I found you on social medias. That's because always artists always are like, how did you find me? Like, where did like you come from? How did any of that happen? And it just, like I said, like I love to do my homework, and I love to just deep dive into some of these more independent up and coming artists. And that's really what inspires me, because at the end of the day, the music business is so hard to jump into, and it's so hard to make those connections. So just opening doors for other artists, because if I can go out of my way to help an artist kind of get more exposure and get more of a fan base and stuff like that, then at the end of the day, that's what works for me. And that's what this whole series is about. It's about the artists that I have on the show. So obviously I'm a huge fan of yours. I can't wait for more music, and I can't wait to see what other big things come for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of course. So that kind of concludes all the questions that I have for you today. So I appreciate you taking time to do all that. Now it gets to the fun part of the interview, is listening to a song that you sent over a little while ago that we are going to take a listen to. Kind of before we hop into that, if you want to let us know a little bit about how this song kind of came about, and just what the name of the song is and everything like that.
Awesome. So during COVID, I was like, I would like to just jump on a record, kind of just put out more music, because before being just a strictly pop country artist, I was just doing pop. So I was like, I would like to release a record. And I ended up connecting with Kelsey Ballerini's former guitar and tech, Jeremy Boyle, during COVID. And we did some co-writing together. We did Zoom sessions like this. He was all the way in Nashville. I was here in Boston. And I was like, now this was like a year ago now, but I had kind of liked this guy, and I was like, I want to write a song about how I feel about him. And we ended up, writing the song together. The song's called Are We More Than? And it's kind of a song because I was really confused in this like part of my life last year. I had developed this awesome friendship, but at the same time I was like, is there something more? Is there something I don't know? So I ended up writing a song about him. And it's called Are We More Than?
Awesome. So, I mean, other than that, without further ado, we are going to take a quick listen to that.
Great.
Boy, I like it so much, you make me feel like
So I'm gonna cut it off there just because people always hate when I cut music off, but it's just that is such a great song. And it's always hard when artists send the song over for me to play because I want to just sit here and jam out to it, but I also don't want to start breaking glass and start doing all that stuff because my voice is horrendous. But it's just that is such a cool song. I love the vibe to it. I love the story behind it. And you are just such a super talented artist.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know I can't wait for everybody to hear it because that's been like in my files for a year now, a little bit over a year. So I'm
Yeah.
like so happy the world gets to hear it. So
No, and that's awesome. I mean, like I said, I just can't wait for that to come out. And I think once it does, that's definitely going to blow up and it's definitely going to be a good song for you to have out there.
awesome. Thank you so much.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes everything. But before I do my little outro here, is where can we find you on social media so people can go kind of check out some of your stuff?
Totally. So I'm on all platforms under Claire Sully 27. I'm on Instagram, so quite active on that app. So if you want to find me there. And then my music can be found on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes under Claire Sully.
Perfect. So Claire, thank you again so much for taking time to just be on here today and just to kind of talk about your story through music.
Thank you so much.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. You all know the drill at this point. Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern. We got a new artist, new episode. Never know who you're going to see on here. Never know what's going to happen. So y'all stay tuned for next week. And thanks for tuning in today.